Welcome into Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho.
And this is Jacob Waters.
And we have a great show for you guys today. All right, having a little bit of fun with the sound machine here.
You're going to lose that responsibility.
All right, guys, we have a good show for you guys today. Look, this is a tradition. We started year 1 of the pod. Now we're going into year 3 of the pod, and we're going to do it again.
3 years?
I mean, third season, yeah.
This is year 2.
This is the third season we've done the pod.
Wow.
We started in 2019.
We're old.
Yeah, we've been doing this a minute. All right, we are doing Close the Book episode, all right? And what basically, hey, this is the final chapter of the 2022 season for the amount of teams that we're going to talk about today, with the caveat that we're not going to go ahead and shit on the certain teams in the NFL that, like, they were done before they started, right? We knew the Jaguars probably weren't going to be in it. We knew the Jets, Texans, those teams, it's over. Like, it's been over. We're not closing the book on those teams because it was closed months ago, honestly.
Well, you're just not making a book. Yeah,
we didn't write the book.
That's what's up with them. They're just...
But hey, we have a list of 5 teams that I think, we had a good little bit debate on these. There's one team, I guess we'll talk about at the end, or actually, we'll bring it up now. There's one team that is not on this episode, we're not closing the book on, that I pushed for, and you ultimately won the argument. I ultimately agreed with what you were saying.
Well, there's a few that are on here too that I was kind of giving a little pushback, but it's like, you know what? No, you're right. Like, you gotta... We don't want to be as cookie cutter as it may sound and be like, well, mathematically so-and-so is eliminated. Now, we're kind of jumping the gun here and picking up on some trends and tendencies, saying this team's not doing good or this team has lost this and not doing good. So, I mean, what's the future look like?
Yeah,
so,
look, we have some 5-win teams in here that are mathematically still absolutely in it, all right? So this is not like a statistical analysis of if they can or cannot make the playoffs. This is us
watching football and saying this team's not making the playoffs.
Absolutely, exactly. So we'll start with the first team that I pushed for because I do think it's over for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think I'm definitely jumping the gun as far as, like, I'm a little too early on it. I just look at a defense that is depleted with injuries. They lost all their big stars. Doesn't seem like they can stop anybody. I mean, the Bengals they ran it down their throat. They're a good running team. Bengals are a good running team, but I mean, it was sad. Big Ben did not have his mojo at all, and it seems like they are live or die with a Big Ben who, he has good games. He came back off injury last week and played pretty well, but I'm looking at an offensive line that's struggling, wide receivers that are honestly less than advertised at the beginning of the year. I was expecting a lot more from this wide receiver group than we're getting. Granted, there's been some injuries in that department too. I was ready to close the book, but you made good arguments as why we shouldn't yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a team 2 weeks ago that went toe-to-toe with the Chargers in a very, very impressive fashion. Yes, they ended up coming out and losing that game for sure. And the Pittsburgh Steelers that come out and play flat are a very, very bad close-the-book team. Mm-hmm. But the good version of those Steelers, if they can somehow salvage it, I'm not saying that it's probably going to happen, but I'm saying it's too soon to close the book fully on the Pittsburgh Steelers because in my head, they are just primarily too dominant of a team. They have a very good coach. They do have a good running back. They have Big Ben, depending on which version you get, and they're banged up on defense. And some of those stars are hopefully looking to come back. Mm-hmm. I know some of them are out for the year, but listen, we can't close the book on them just yet.
Any validity to the rumors that Mike Tomlin might be moving on to the college football?
It would decimate the Steelers.
Yeah.
I really think it would decimate them just because they have had, I think they have one of the longest, he's probably one of the longest tenured coaches in the league right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I know you got Bill who's been doing his thing for a long time. Pete Carroll's been doing his thing for a long time. Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid. But he has been with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long time. Where's the rumors that he would leave? I'm trying to pull it up. It's I've definitely heard some different things. I'm trying to remember which school. Oh, the USC job was definitely a conversation. Obviously, that's not happening. But there were a couple things. He said, "Never say never, but next" was the quote that he did in the.
Oh, never say never, but never heard. Yeah. Okay, so fair enough. Like he's vehemently against it. I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league. I just thought it was worth mentioning.
USC's wrapped up too. So if that was the only job that he was going to consider going to, that already has a coach in place. So hopefully he stays for Pittsburgh Steelers' sake.
Absolutely, yeah. Great coach. They have just a storied legacy. We'll move on. The first team we are closing the book on. would argue, I think this is mathematically over. 3-win team here in the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, they lose Russell Wilson for a good portion of the season. And it didn't work out. Obviously, they lost a lot of games without him. But Russell Wilson comes back, and I think they're on a 3-game losing streak with him in the roster. 4-game now.
It is the first time in Russell's career they've lost 4 in a row with him at the helm, and it's the first time that Seattle has 8 losses since drafting Russell.
Wow. And it is bad. And look, I am 100% of the belief of the mindset that this is not all Russell's fault. I mean, I watched the game last night. It was actually a pretty good game, despite like the score not looking as awesome. But they're down 8 points in the fourth quarter. 9 minutes left. This is their second to last drive before the end of the game, and they run the ball on first down. It's just whatever the mindset is in Seattle. I do think it starts from the top. Now it's also they don't have a lot of talent around him. Russell Wilson can't do it all, and he has played worse this year than we've really ever seen him play. On the back of an injury that definitely hasn't helped. I think that's a big portion of it. Not playing like a top 5 quarterback this year, but I mean, I don't blame him. This team is in shambles right now.
I don't blame him. I blame the scheme that's going on around him, though, because we're talking about a Seattle Seahawks team that has a lot of good offensive weapons. Yes, I guess the bones behind this team, which when I say bones, you're talking about the big boys up front and the offensive line and that defensive line, really the way that you build the team in interior out. The Seahawks have a lot of flashy. They have a DK. They have Tyler Lockett. They have a Russell Wilson. A lot of good firepower to make noise. DK didn't have a target going into the fourth quarter.
No, he didn't.
I don't know if I think he got one or two.
He got his first catch with 62 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I couldn't remember exactly when. I know he got one, but that's just bad coaching.
Yeah.
That is terrible coaching. Washington and their secondary has a lot of injuries going on in itself, and to not exploit the fact that you have a physical specimen that is DK Metcalf, who can do it against almost anybody out there. Yeah. Maybe not a Jalen Ramsey, just because he has his number. Everybody else, it's a matchup, and just to not even do that, it's bad coaching. And we've kind of hinted at this Pete Carroll thing for a minute now, and I'm starting to see the wheels turning, and a lot of people's heads who weren't even thinking about the Pete Carroll stuff now too. Yes, something big is going to happen with this Seattle Seahawks offseason, because they don't even have a first-round pick.
No, they don't.
They're still paying the price on Jamal Adams, and keep in mind, his impact is not what it should be for this defense.
Minimal.
No, very minimal.
He's a great player. He's a great safety in the league. But at the end of the day, he's not changing the dynamic of the defense. He's not winning games for that defense. So I would say that was a bad trade on their part.
There's linemen with more interceptions than he has on the year. He just doesn't. He doesn't get interceptions. He's the run stuff. Prototype.
Absolutely.
Hard hitter, but. You do not pay 2 first-round picks for that.
Yeah, 2 firsts. I think they paid more than 2 firsts. But yeah, that's not looking like a good trade. Obviously, the Jets are sitting there with two top 5 picks right now. I mean, that's ridiculous.
They're sitting pretty.
Let's take another step forward. Look, you hinted at the issue with the coach. Listen, last year there was a lot of talk that Russell Wilson might be gone. He was having issues with his franchise. We saw it a lot last year. Russell Wilson was kind of the first one, and then we saw the Aaron Rodgers stuff. Obviously, Desean, I guess, did happen a little bit before that, but like 3 great quarterbacks were having issues. Russell Wilson was definitely in that category. Look, it could be Pete Carroll's time. It could be Russell Wilson's time.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I don't know what, but something is going to change.
It's going to be interesting. Now, as far as players that they're losing in free agency or that are at the end of their contract, Dwayne Brown, who he was holding out at the beginning of the season, and they gave him some incentives to play this year. I would imagine he's going to be gone. I would imagine he doesn't want to re-sign. Quandre Diggs, their safety, he gets some time. Other than that, you have Gerald Everett. That's not a huge loss. Beyond that, nobody that really, I think, pushes the envelope either way. They're going to have to get a new backup quarterback because Geno Smith didn't work out, and he's on his last year of his contract. Beyond that, nothing major, but not a lot of major hard hitters in this, on this team to begin with. So definitely seems like they have a lot of work to do without another first-round pick. Feels like they were trying to do what the Rams have done, and it has not worked out the same way.
They just weren't the Rams. They just didn't have that infrastructure around them, and that were primarily used to Seattle always being a contender and having.
Oh, of course.
And at the beginning of the year, we went into this season with our rankings and stuff saying there is a world where the Seahawks finished last in this division. I did not see it going in this fashion, though. I saw this being just a dog-eat-dog division, one of them being 7-10 or 8-9, whatever the math works out on that, and maybe that being the Seattle Seahawks. Not this complete train wreck of a team. I knew they didn't have a defense, but I gave Russ a lot of credit for that. And right now, it's just not panning out.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, injury definitely hurt that. Going into the draft, obviously, without that first-round pick we mentioned, they are going to need offensive line. We've been saying it for years. Offensive line's been the biggest need. Tackle, center, guard, wherever you want to go with it. Actually, their guards really aren't that bad. Their interior isn't as bad as their, well, no, Dwayne Brown's on line. They need offensive line, period. I mean,
they need offensive line, and then they somehow
corner.
have to find a way to get those cornerbacks going. Yeah,
corner is definitely an issue as well. Look, we're not going to go into the weeds on who they should target, especially, second, third round. We might mention it on teams that have an early first round pick as we go through this this segment of this episode. We haven't done enough work on the draft yet to really
with
confidently
Seattle,
speak
let's
on
just
it.
wait and see. Based off of this year's draft, there was a lot of very, very good offensive line talent that fell to the second round. So, I mean, if Seahawks are able to capitalize on that, I mean, look at Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, killing it.
One of the best picks in the draft, no joke. I mean, he was one of those guys who fell.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere else we need to go with the Seahawks? I'm not seeing anything big. It's going to be interesting. This is a team in flux.
Close them up. Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win that. I cannot help but think, though, that if Russ had a problem last year, going off of 3 wins, there has to be an issue there, right? He has to know his value, his age, whatever the case may be, and a lot of other teams out there who would pay. And looking at it from the Seattle Seahawks side, you do not have a lot of picks right now. There is a world where both of these guys might be able to ship them off, and Seattle get a very, very good return for maybe starting their whole process over again. I don't think Seattle should do that by any means. Don't get me wrong. You should appease Russell Wilson in the best case that you can. You have 3 wins, though. You got to start looking at something.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Let's move on to the next team we're going to close the book on. This team is not mathematically out of it, but I would argue it's pretty much over for the Chicago Bears.
Matt Nagy would, too.
Yeah, Matt Nagy is vehemently arguing against that statement, but we're pretty sure we're going to be on the right side of history on this one. Yeah. Chicago Bears, take it away just with the overview of the Chicago Bears.
Oh my gosh. I mean, a year that has just been filled with some impressive grind out wins. It's been ugly at times. Justin Fields getting to come in and seeing the excitement. But at the end of the day, this is just a team that when I watch, I am always, and I mean always, offensively wanting more. It's just like, why are they not doing this? Why are they not even trying that? Matt Nagy, as big of a genius that you are, it's just sad to see. Genius, and all, because it's not true. He's going to be out of a job before we know it. I guess they're going to finish out the year is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
No way. We're closing the book. I'm saying the chance that they do somehow make the playoffs, like I said, we're closing the book because we know that shit ain't happening. But I'm sure Matt Nagy's, when he goes to sleep at night, that's what he's thinking in his head.
Yeah.
Either way, I think there's no way. What's done is done. This team has a good defense, and they're about to, but the problem is they're losing one of their best weapons in Allen Robinson. Unless they're able to sign him, they're not going to sign him. It's not pretty right now.
Yeah, so Bears are 4-7 right now. Mathematically, not completely out of it. We're going to talk about 3 more teams after this that are all 5-win teams. So, say what you want about this.
Keep in mind, all of them are still technically in it.
But yeah, it's done for the Bears. It doesn't seem like they're just not able to get anything going offensively. When they do have some weapons, you mentioned Allen Robinson being a good piece of that. They were able to draft a Mooney, I think it was last year, who's been coming onto the scene. Their running back is really good. At the end of the day, for whatever reason, it's not clicking the way it should. And I do point to Matt Nagy, who was supposed to be this offensive genius. We've hit on that plenty. So we'll move forward. You mentioned Allen Robinson. He was signed to, he did have his, he was tagged this past year, franchise tagged this past year, got $17 million to play this year. Not a bad deal by any means.
Oh, I'm sure he'll do that.
Probably not going to come back next year. I would be very surprised if they franchise a wide receiver again. I understood the move this year, especially, looking back. Hey, they drafted a rookie quarterback. You want to have that star wide receiver on the outside that can help him out. At the end of the day, it's looking like he's going to be gone. Akeem Hicks is going to be on his last year. He's 32 years old at defensive end position, getting $12 million this year. Probably not coming back for that price tag, I would imagine, but he's still a good player. So
he really is.
He'll find a job. I don't know if it will be with the Bears or not. Usually teams like this that are rebuilding, they probably move away from these older, higher, he's probably going to demand $6-7 million on the open market, and I doubt they spend that much on him. Beyond that, no other big names. Andy Dalton and Nick Foles are going to be at the end of their contract. We'll see what happens there with the backup quarter position. Look, this is the second, we'll say, franchise or second round of quarterback coach combination for the Bears where they hire a coach and they hire a coach that is a lame duck coach at the end of the day that gets to draft for the future of the franchise, the quarterback, and then they move on from the coach the next year. Look, I know we're jumping the gun a little bit saying that Matt Nagy's gone, but it was Fox last time. He gets to draft Trubisky, trade up one pick in the same draft that Mahomes gets drafted to draft Mitchell Trubisky, and then gets fired the next year, and then Nagy comes in, was supposed to save Trubisky, and then you have to deal with that, right? Now Nagy had he had 3 or 4 years at the job when he was trying to figure out the quarterback position the whole time. Didn't really get to grow with Trubisky the way maybe he thought he could. Obviously he took that job thinking Trubisky could be the dude, so don't want to completely blame it all on him. But at the end of the day, it happens again with Justin Fields, and you hope it's not the same result. Justin Fields, look, he's shown sparks. There's been moments. There was the touchdown run, 22-yard touchdown run where he runs all over the field to get in the end zone. Good moments, has not been consistent. I don't know where to blame it, all on him, all on the coach. I think there's probably a good bit of blame for both sides. At the end of the day, it'll be interesting to see. This is another team without their first round pick because of Justin Fields. A coach is going to have to come in here and decide, be able to mold a Justin Fields, and it just sucks that whoever that coach is didn't truly get the opportunity to pick their quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. But with Justin Fields being so young and so, it's not even a question whether you move on from him or not. You're going to stick with him. You deal with the best hand that you can, that you got. It's just unfortunate for Fields when it comes to the outlook of his career. It's unfortunate for Chicago fans because it feels like we're only, 4 years removed from the double doink?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a very 3 or 4, very impressive season with the defense. I mean, it was just looking so good, and you still have that good defense, but you start losing pieces like an Akeem Hicks, and then next thing you know, you start Khalil Mack's not getting any younger. I'm sorry, and right now I've heard that he's very, very disgruntled with the Bears organization, and there's a chance that he may hold out in the offseason. Yeah, wasted his prime. Yeah. It's not looking good from top to bottom. And I don't know the next guy that's going to have to step in. I will guarantee you this, Matt Nagy's ass is gone in the offseason.
Got to be, right?
Yeah. No way that he will be the head coach of Chicago Bears next season.
Moving forward, biggest need, we're looking at offensive guard, cornerback probably. There's some huge needs there. Wide receiver is going to be a need if Allen Robinson's go. Really, honestly, even if he's still there, you have Mooney, you have Allen Robinson, not a whole lot behind them that I can think of off the top of my head that, I could certainly see them upgrading that position even if they are able to keep an Allen Robinson.
I'm saying you take Robinson away, and if Mooney, it's a very, very bad wide receiver room if that's the case.
And really, you look at that defense as a whole, listen, they've been a really good defense for a lot of years, really kind of holding up an offense that has been less than spectacular. The defense won them a lot of games over the past 2-3 years. But I could sit here and say, hey, nose tackle, D-line, edge, safety, all of these positions are positions that are aging and probably on the tail end of where they were 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, elite falls off quick.
Yeah,
it does.
It absolutely does. And, I'm not going to sit here and write home about a lot of the names on their defense, but there was a lot of good players there. Eddie Jackson, probably leads the pack. And you got the Florida State D-end or D-tackle.
Roquan has been
Roquan's been awesome. Yeah.
Yes, I do like some of the picks that Matt Nagy
They have some
made.
good pieces.
They have made some good picks overall, but it's just X's and O's on the field. It is not translating to what it is.
Yeah. So anywhere else you want to go with this Bears? We discussed the free agency. We just discussed some of their biggest needs. They don't have a first-round pick again, so they're going to be in a position where they're going to have to find help in the draft. Looking like the 2022, I don't know what their potential their potential thing is. I don't have that up at the top of my head. But either way, anywhere else you want to go with that?
No, just that I feel bad for Justin Fields. I just don't think he's going to get he's not getting the good shake.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Hey, that's how it goes, man. You get to pick your spot in college. You don't get to pick it in the NFL.
It is. And there's a lot of other quarterbacks out there in years past who have had just a lot of different bounce arounds, and it didn't pan out for those same reasons.
It feels so, it's antiquated a little bit to say, but right now, Mac Jones is having the best of the rookie quarterback's career to start. Not saying he'll be the best over a long term, but he has had the fastest start.
Now, though, yeah.
What if those reversed? What if Mac Jones was in Chicago and Justin Fields was in New England? I can guarantee you Mac Jones would not be considered the best rookie quarterback at this point. Everyone would be saying, "Oh, we told you, we knew he wasn't going to be any good." Even though most of the fans were probably wrong overall is about how good Mac Jones was going to be, and then now Justin Fields would probably be doing a lot better in New England. It's just one of those things where I think location does matter.
Landing spot is huge,
of course. So hopefully he can recuperate. We see seen a lot of good quarterback, great quarterbacks definitely, persevere through, bad situations. I certainly believe in that. Let's move on. Listen, the rest of the segment, we should really just call it by the division that it is. NFC South, all right?
Closing the book on
and we're not closing the book on the Bucks, but the rest of that NFC South, hey, we're closing it. Where do you want to start with?
Go Falcons.
Falcons. All right, we'll start Falcons.
I'll start with the one that I think is most definitive close the book on for sure.
I absolutely agree. At the end of the day, hey, they just got a win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good job, but that's not the milestone we're looking for from the Falcons. Hey, 5-win team, gotten some interesting wins. They have some pieces in place. Got a new coach last year coming from Tennessee. There's a lot of optimism over like the next couple of years. A little bit more than I think over the Seahawks and Bears. That feels like they're on the tail end of their coach's career, and the Falcons are on the beginning part, and there's still hope.
Have to be on the come up.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, I'll let you take the overview, but I do want to mention real quick, Matt Ryan is going to be the highest paid player over the next 2 years. When the Falcons went on that run, when they had the 28-3 season, they did everything they could to try and hold it together to push for another ring. And Roosters are coming home to Coop a little bit as far as what happens next. They backloaded that Matt Ryan contract so much to be able to afford all the other pieces. Now they're having to pay for it. They're not going to be in a good position free agency wise. We'll see what happens in the draft. I'll let you take it over for where the Falcons have been right now.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. They kicked that can so far down the road, and someone has to pay the toll now, and it's happening. So it's hard to say that they have a lot going for them in the next 2 years with a contract like that. I think he's getting $45 million.
I can look it up. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It is insane. It's astronomical, and you have to handle that load for 2 years right now while you're still in this rebuilding process. And Matt Ryan still being ahead of serviceable. I would say he's a good quarterback still.
Absolutely.
There's certain areas where it's like, if we're a team that's this bad, we would like to maybe ship him off and see if there's something they could do. I don't know how that shakes up with a no-trade clause perhaps or anything like that. If I'm the Atlanta Falcons, though, I would have to look at it and be like, I'm trying to move Matt Ryan. But the catch is, who's going to take on that contract?
This is interesting, and I didn't realize this. There is a potential out in 2022 coming up where they would have a $40 million dead cap hit, but they could technically get out of that contract.
You save 1 year. Because
essentially, so that would be this, but if they decide to keep him for 22-23, he has a $48 million cap in 2022 and a $43 million cap in 2023. Mahomes doesn't have that much.
No, it's insane. And we're talking about 37, 38-year-old, what the future would be, a Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And this is a team that's they don't need a Matt Ryan right now. I'm sorry to say that, but as good as this team could be, yes, Matt Ryan could help them, but I think it's time to wash your hands of it, hit the floor, and see if you can just get some good young players and picks and see the future.
Yeah, I didn't realize that potential out after 4 years.
Well, it's hard to call it an out with a $40 million in dead cap. There's teams who don't even hit half that in dead money.
Yeah, but if you hit...
But that's 1 year.
That's 1 year versus paying $90 million over the next 2 for a quarterback who can't get out of the way when there's pressure. And look, I'm not discrediting him. Neither can Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback we've ever seen and still is. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have the infrastructure around him to be as elite as he could be. I think that's fair to say. Anybody would agree with that. Do you want to pay him $90 million? I don't.
No, you don't pay a quarterback that much to have a pick like they're going to have.
Yeah,
you
with 4 wins or 5 wins, and it's not looking super hot right now. That's interesting. That honestly, because I didn't realize, I knew the stat on on him being the highest paid quarterback of the next 2 years. I did not realize he had that out. So that kind of changes my whole dynamic of what they could do in free agency. What they could do. Well, free agency is going to be tough either way, especially if you take that out.
Yeah, I mean they're $40 million. Yeah,
but I mean that changes if they like a quarterback enough, and if they're in a spot, they might make that move. That's super interesting. I'll let you take another crack at just like where they've been this year, while I'm pulling up a couple other things that we want to talk about.
I mean, well, they're sitting at 5 wins, but those wins haven't been impressive. I think a lot of times where they have been able to win, they have just barely tooth and nail gotten by, and some of these other teams just really haven't done it. I mean, they just beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're not going to write home about that. It just so happens that they have the same record as my Minnesota Vikings, and I just can't help but feel like we're just on different planets of, I guess, team outlook and future and talent and whatnot. I hope. Man, I hope, because I just do not like the Falcons overall. This defense is struggling. A.J. Terrell's a hit. He's one of PFF's highest-rated corners overall. He has been playing lights out. Amazing. But you have some aging stars. You have some guys who just never really hit like they were supposed to. Their potential just wasn't reached. And, one of your best offensive weapons is Cordero Patterson. That's just because you're finding ways to get him the ball. Yes, I applaud you, Arthur Smith, for doing that. But that's not going to really change my mind that much overall in team success.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kyle Pitts does seem like the future as far as the playmaker that they have. I mean, he's going to be a star.
Got to get Ridley back for whatever's off the field, too.
Absolutely. You have some pieces. Calvin Ridley, like you said. Cordell Patterson, he is one of the free agents this year. Got to imagine he's going to get re-signed and probably make a little bit more than the $3 million he's making this year. Dante Fowler, really the only other big name that's gone after this year, and I believe, that was a 2-year contract. It wasn't a long contract. Got paid a good bit of money, but at the end of the day, not the biggest loss because he's underperformed a little bit.
Yes.
They don't have a lot of big names that are going to be gone. I mean, you have guys like Isaiah Oliver, which is a cornerback. Hayden Hurst, tight end, who they traded for, AJ McCarron, but nobody like major that you're losing in free agency. That's good news for the Falcons. If you're a Falcons fan, you look at some of the needs that they're going to have in free agency and you could just say the team. Like you're kind of like it feels like you're kind of in like Jets territory a little bit last year when it was like minus Matt Ryan and the quarterback, but you could use offensive line, you could use defensive line. Seems like you'd use another corner, you could use linebacker if you wanted. You could go wide receiver, especially if this Calvin Ridley thing works out the worst way it could. You could definitely use running back. You could, you could go a lot of different ways.
It's everything except for tight end. No joke.
Essentially, yeah.
And that's just because you got Kyle Pitts, if I'm the Falcons, I would wash my hands of Matt Ryan. I would take the next year for what it is. I would try to load up on some good talent and see if I can really hit on these picks. Get the offensive line prepared. I cannot stress it enough how important it is to have your offensive line in check. And I'm not saying you have to just go have a top 10 at each position, but you have to have names who have chemistry with each other, or at least pieces that you can sub in and out to keep the whole thing intact before you go get a quarterback who just is not of superstar X factor status. Because like a Justin Fields, perhaps. I know we just closed the book, but the only reason I'm mentioning it in saying that I think a lot of these quarterbacks nowadays need some stuff around them. If you're going to send them into that just hellfire and flames with no offensive line around them, what are you asking? Seriously, what are your true expectations of that guy at that point?
Steelers give you a call, say, hey, if you take on the majority of that Matt Ryan contract, we'll trade you a first. We'll trade you 2 firsts for Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts right now. Would you take it?
Yeah, the Kyle Pitts is the hard one for sure.
Kyle Pitts is the hard one.
It's a hard one to swallow.
But you're looking at Kyle Pitts. You got 5 years with Kyle Pitts. If you're in a true rebuild, you're almost wasting your prime. I understand that that's a tough pill to swallow. But I was just thinking like Steelers probably could use a quarterback. Especially with the quarterbacks that might be on the market. Matt Ryan would be in the bottom tier of that. When you think Desean Watson could be on the move, Aaron Rodgers could be on the move, Russell Wilson probably not going to be on the move, but could be. Wouldn't think Matt Ryan in the same breath as those guys, but if I'm the Steelers and you could get a Matt Ryan for cheap over the next 2 or 3 years with the infrastructure that they have, with the weapons that they have, and you could add a Kyle Pitts to that, or maybe it's not Kyle Pitts, just name another young good player on their team, whatever it is. That would be a move that I would consider for the Steelers. Is that a move? You're speaking rebuild, so I'm thinking,
what are rebuild
I think
scenarios? In the offseason, phones would be ringing, at least asking about a Matt Ryan. It doesn't have the same impact as like a Matt Stafford to the Rams, of course, just because of age. It doesn't. But Matt Ryan, still has some football left to be played. And if there's weapons around him, I think he could do a good job.
Absolutely, yeah. I think in the right system, I would have no issue thinking that he could, if he was the quarterback for the Bucs, I think the Bucs would, probably not have 8 wins, but they'd have, 6 or 7. They'd still be good.
He's a good quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anywhere else you want to go with the Falcons? I think I'm good. Very, very interesting. Something to keep an eye on. I know we're closing the book, but if any other news comes out about the Falcons, we'll certainly be talking about it, especially that quarterback.
Yeah,
very, very interesting there. We'll move on. Let's go Panthers next. Man, is this a take I missed on? And it was looking good to start. I love my Panthers. I thought they were going to be a great team this year. I thought I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be a good combination with Darnold coming from the Jets. I thought this defense was going to put it all together. Defense is the star of the show, to be honest with you. The offense is struggling, and first 5 weeks, it was looking real good. A little bit of a fall apart now. Feels like it's over after losing 33-10 to the Dolphins. Look, I don't think they got completely boat raced. Like, it's not like the Dolphins outplayed them on both sides of the ball. There were some good turnovers the Dolphins were able to turn around. They had a block punt that turned into a touchdown. So it seemed like after the first half, the Panthers were climbing up a giant hill, and it was kind of out of nowhere. So I don't want to sit here and say they completely, I don't want to sit here and say they're not even on the same level as the Dolphins. I think they very much are. Play that game again, it could go very different. But at the end of the day, I do think it's over for the Panthers. What is the move moving forward? Where is the thought process now with the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out what you want to do with this offense. You have this offensive identity now where we went into this Cam Newton feel-good hope story, and he's still going to be the starter going forward and whatnot, is what Matt Rule has said. But I don't think that matters. I think if you're sitting here questioning whether Cam Newton or Sam Darnold's your starter in 2022, I think you didn't do your due diligence in the offseason and looking at some of these other moves, looking at the possibility of getting a quarterback. Quarterback is the number one top issue that this team needs. Right after that would be offensive line, and they got to move on from that. And I'm hearing some small swirls of rumors, because Christian McCaffrey's done for the year, that it might be time to move on from that too. They just paid him an astronomical amount of money, but how unfortunate is it, because we know the ability that is there. He cannot finish the season.
2 years in a row.
Cannot finish the season no matter what, and it's not even like we're seeing the same lingering injury. It's just there's injury-prone guys that are out there, and it kind of happens. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's unfortunate. It sucks. But I'm saying, if you were to get a phone call and so-and-so really wants Christian McCaffrey, I don't know that you do it, but I think you listen at least. The main thing, though, you got to figure out what you want to do with quarterback. I would attack it because I really love this defense. Even with closing the book on them, I still think the Panthers have a damn good defense that can keep you in a lot of games. Their defense, their special teams were doing really, really good. It was just their offense was so much worse. This year, they were so simplistic that teams were able to catch on so fast, even with some of the other weapons that are around you. Got to get a quarterback. Got to get the offensive line.
Yeah, and listen, you mentioned the McCaffrey thing. I just pulled up his contract. 2022 should be getting $14 million. They have the out in 2023, so I would think if you don't get the right offer, you probably keep him and see what happens in 2022, because it's not like you're stuck with him until 2025.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're just handcuffed, crippled to McCaffrey right now. They have a fairly good books balance because they have a lot of young guys on defense and some young guys on offense. They have money to spend. They have assets to move. There's ways that they could really, out of all the teams that we have closed the book on today, bar none, the Panthers, and I guess we'll mention the Saints soon, are by far set up the best. The Panthers is based off of the way that they're moving forward. Yes, the way that their money is set up and team. I give the Saints a lot of credit just from their coach and overall organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned quarterback is their biggest need. Quarterback, offensive line. That's what you hit hard in the draft. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. Hey, 2 years ago they went all defense. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if they just go all offense this year. They have needs.
Still think they may have a move for Deshaun.
Yeah, cornerback is going to be Desean Watson. I'll get to that in a second. They have Stephon Gilmore on the contract right now that he'll probably be done after this year, getting paid $13 million after that trade, which I don't think was a bad move. I think they were really a cornerback away from being a top tier defense, and I think they would be getting more credit as a top tier defense if the offense was doing their job like it was early in the season. You lose a Christian McCaffrey and the entire offense falls apart. Yeah, that's strange. I think Chuba Hubbard, your backup running back that you drafted, kind of high for, at least to where I had him graded out. Not working out to where you would like it to. Granted, I understand you can't expect him to go in and take on the same production that a Christian McCaffrey was taking on. He had
opportunity, though.
But it felt like he had opportunity and he let it down a little bit. He was less than impressive. I'll put it that way. Moving forward, as far as like players that are losing, Hassan Reddick, I would imagine gets signed to a long-term contract. He had a 1-year deal, prove-it deal kind
He's
of.
about to get paid.
And I do think he'll get paid. He's been playing pretty well. Obviously they're losing their center who's a good player. other guys that getting good amount of money, but nothing crazy.
I would pay Dante Jackson.
Dante Jackson's a good player as well. But at the end of the day, hey, we're looking at a team that it feels like they are on the upswing. I know it's a bad year. I know they're we're talking about them after a catastrophic loss to the Dolphins that pretty much sealed their fate in this playoff race. I mean, at 5 wins in the NFC, it is over. It really is. I just don't see them getting past the 49ers. I don't see them getting past one of these NFC East team that has a much easier schedule down the road. At the end of the day, that's why we're closing the book. But man, figure it out at quarterback. You mentioned Desean Watson a minute ago. That's where we have to go next. If they can get Desean or Aaron Rodgers, it's over, right? Like
I realistically think yes. With the especially looking at the divisional outlook, we still have Tampa Tom, however long he's going to be there. Yeah. They're going to be doing that little thing. But the overall future, I mean, let's talk 2 to 3 year future of this division. If they're able to secure a quarterback like a Desean primarily, Aaron Rodgers, of course, you'd get to run it for a little bit, but Desean, Russell, anything like that, they could really take this thing and just go and not look back. And then once the circus that's going on in Tampa is over, it's theirs.
Yeah.
This defense is that good. Yeah, you lost J.C. Horn, to a season-ending injury. Hopefully he comes in. He was playing good ball before that. Hopefully he picks right back up where he left off. This defensive line is monstrous. They're good. It's a good team, and it sucks to close the book on them.
Are we completely done with the Sam Darnold experiment? Is it over?
Yes, it's over. Yes.
Really? How come I'm not done with it?
I'm done. I am officially done. And this is coming from a guy who really has rooted for Sam Darnold and seen the flash at times.
We saw it was so good the first 4 weeks.
He had opportunity though, and it just
he was so good. It fell apart. It absolutely fell apart. Look, I'm playing devil's advocate.
I feel like it fell apart in his own hands though.
It did a little bit. I do think a part of the problem was the offense as a whole didn't evolve as much as it probably should have, and I think that was just a mistake on the offense as a whole. Christian McCaffrey getting hurt, obviously hurt as well, but man.
McCaffrey is a catalyst in that offense. It really is because it was Sam Darnold's sense of security whenever he was scanning the field. It was like, okay, well, we can just rely on McCaffrey, or we can give a toss to McCaffrey and he can make X happen or this happen, or Chuba wasn't that. Chuba wasn't supposed to be that though. It just depends. I definitely expect Carolina to replace Chuba with a new running back in this year's draft and still keep McCaffrey going forward. I still like their weapons though.
Fair enough. And Sam Darnold, we'll see what happens with him.
Are you going to be as high on him next year?
As the Panthers, I think it depends. I think we'll see what happens.
What if they rock with Sam Darnold and Cam?
No.
I think
that's a near impossibility. That's a near impossibility.
I think that's the favorite.
No, see,
I really think that's the favorite because we can't just sit here and talk about home run hitters and Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers.
At the end of the day, they could have that Cincinnati quarterback, Ritter, I think.
Desmond Ritter's really good.
They could have
Pickett's a good one.
Pickett, whichever quarterback it is. I haven't really dove into the rookie quarterbacks coming into next season. Whatever it is, they're going to draft one of those guys and keep Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold will probably be the presumed starter, but then we'll still be looking and say, okay, hey, if this rookie pans out, like maybe he looks like a Mac Jones, like it looks this year, like, one of those kind of stories. That could happen. I'm not saying will happen. Obviously, way too soon to talk about draft and quarterbacks that could go there. But if they aren't able to get one of the stars in free agency that could be on the move, they're gonna draft somebody. If it's not in the first, it'll be in the second, and it won't be as big of a name.
So no way that they don't bring a quarterback.
There's no way that it is the 3 quarterbacks on the roster are the same 3 next year. Absolutely 0%. It's not going to be PJ Walker, Cam Newton, and Darnold. There's just no way.
I could see. I'm telling you, I think that I agree with you on what they should do. I don't know. I think that there's a world where they go into next season rocking.
I will give you a 1 to 20 shot bet right now. A 1 to 20. You got to do one shot if they bring in anybody.
Let's iron out the parameters and maybe lower the bet just a little bit because you mentioned a PJ Walker. I don't think PJ Walker is going to be on the Panthers either.
Okay,
and I do think that there's a chance that if they take a quarterback in rounds 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah,
you win.
I win, or they bring in any quarterback that has started in the NFL.
Yes, someone who's supposed to take that job,
or that could at least compete for the job.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I don't want Nick Foles to
let's move the parameters. I'm saying 20. It's a drunk night. I have to get fucked up.
Okay.
Essentially.
That's
like,
fine.
I mean, fair enough.
We'll make it at that.
All right, we're good. Yeah, there's just no way. I would be absolutely shocked. Anywhere else you want to go with Carolina? Look, hey, this is my team coming this season. I if they would have hit, I would have been bragging. So, I'm coming to you with humble pie. I was wrong, man. I thought they were going to be great. I still believe in the roster. I still believe in the direction of this team. But, yeah, we're closing the book this year.
Yeah, man, I was heavy sipping on that Cam Newton team. It's time, though.
It is it. The Saints are the last team we are going to talk about on this pod, and then we will close it out. Kind of similar conversation as far as, like, where we're at. I love the organization. I do think they're always going to be on the upswing in my head. I guess, as a 20-year franchise, yeah, they're probably on the downswing right now, but like they're a quarterback away. They're, having a couple offensive weapons away. We're talking about a team over the past couple weeks that has been working without, their number one wide receiver, Michael Thomas, who's been pretty much done for the year. He is done for the year, but like there was expectation that he might come back at some point. That's not happening. Alvin Kamara feels like he's injured but sitting the rest of the season. Feels like that's what's happening. He's probably nursing some kind of injury, but sees the writing on the wall with what this team is this year and says, nah, I don't need to bang up my body for Trevor Siemian or whoever else is going to start a quarterback here. It feels like this is a lame duck season. That's why we're closing the book on him, even though they are at 5 wins, even though Sean Payton is an absolute genius in my mind, and even though I do think they will be one of those pain in the ass teams that like they will beat somebody who goes to the playoffs at some point in the rest of the season. I don't even know who it'll be. Probably the Bucks, just knowing that the history there.
Yeah.
But I do think they will be a team that somebody gets caught up on at some point down the stretch. But at the end of the day, it's over.
It's unfortunate, too, because Jameis was playing well.
Yeah.
And with Jameis at the helm and Sean Payton, as good of a coach as he is, all the weapons around him, too. This is a very good defense. Yeah. Very good. They're a very good team. We're closing the book based on how the injuries have affected this team, though. And in saying that, yes, I mean, Sean Payton, as good of a coach as you are, you're having to rock a Taysom Hill, who has the new quarterback hybrid contract, and a Trevor Siemian with Kamara, who is baby nursing that injury just so he gets to sit. No Mike Thomas. I think you're going to target some other wide receivers in the draft. I don't know. I mean, I like the team. I think they have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. It's gotten banged up a lot, though. They lost Andrews Pete a few times this year. Teron Armstead's been kind of hurt here and there, and I think they may have to pay him in the upcoming year if they even do that.
So let's actually start there, because that'll be a little bit more interesting. Offensive line. Last year, they were one of only a handful of teams that brought back every single offensive lineman. That's huge, right? The offensive line is the crux of any offense, I feel like. Teron Armstead, as you said, he is a free agent coming into the season. Probably going to get paid pretty good, 30 years old. Should still be good for another contract, especially at left tackle. Not like he's running down the field for a living. That'll be interesting to see how it works out. The offensive line is going to be in flux a little bit. They're going to need help at tackle probably in the draft or free agency, wherever it is, or they'll have to pay him. They had a really, really bad cap situation last year. This is going to be a little bit like, the Patriots last year. They had a bad cap situation the year after Brady left, and they were good. They spent a lot of money last year in free agency. I think there's going to be a similar conversation here with the Saints, although they're playing a lot more guys than just like one quarterback or anything like that. Yeah. So there's a lot of guys on the books than just Drew Brees. So maybe it won't be quite to the same level, but I think we'll see a situation where, they'll probably get Jameis Winston come back for cheap. He was getting paid $5.5 million this year. I imagine after the injury, he's not going to be able to get much more on the open market. They'll probably bring him back. Even if they do bring another quarterback back to compete with him, I think they'll probably bring him back.
Unfortunate for Jameis. He was on the right track to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. It seemed like he was playing well. Let me ask you this. Why do we have such a different view of Jameis versus a Sam Darnold? I do think one is clearly better and one played a little bit better. I don't think it was so obvious and this far apart between who was better and who was worse. I do think it was kind of close.
I'll give you that. I don't think it's that far apart. I would say the disparity there is the potential and the organization with keeping Sean Payton around Jameis and some of the weapons that are with it. Because, they're similar. DJ Moore, I'm not going to sit here and say DJ Moore's Michael Thomas for sure, but Jameis played without Michael Thomas's go-around and played very well. So it's close, but I'm just saying overall potential. Sam Darnold right now, he just strikes me as an above-average journeyman quarterback. And it hurts to say because coming out of USC, he was graded very, very high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely. I get that, and I do agree.
How about this? If Sam Darnold was over at New Orleans, I think I'm saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Like that's
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think Jameis would have succeeded as well at Carolina. Or I mean, it would have done just Jameis is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. Let me clarify. But I think that Sam Darnold would succeed in New Orleans.
I'll go so far as to say that if Sam Darnold is done in Carolina, if they cut the cord there and they cut Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold gets signed to a very reasonable contract, and they bring Jameis back to New Orleans, and it's Jameis or Sam Darnold to start. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if I would be watching that quarterback battle all the way through and thinking, I don't know who's going to win. It wouldn't surprise me a bit, and I think both of them can succeed. Sam Darnold might even fit the I don't know. Jameis is just so well known for being that.
Just because we've seen Drew Brees so much, you would think that
I could see a Sam Darnold just being the smart, good in the pocket. Sam Darnold has great feet in the pocket. I think even better than Jameis, and probably can play that smart, NFL style quarterback where it's, hey, you're going to be safe with the ball. You're not going to throw picks. If you don't throw any interceptions, our defense and our weapons is good enough to win the game just that way.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Maybe that's a bold statement. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if what you think on that. I'm not confident in that take. I do question it a little bit. Moving on to draft needs, where they're at with this. Wide receivers, a huge needs, man. I mean, they have hurting. Michael Thomas. We don't know what he's going to look like coming back. It's 2 years. It's 2 years without Michael Thomas.
What 2 years did to Lev.
Yeah. Absolutely. And granted, those are different positions, but I mean, yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't know. Michael Thomas is certainly, if I made a list of top 10 wide receiver, I'm not putting Michael Thomas in. It's been too long. I haven't seen it yet.
Man, there was also a growing crowd out there that when Michael Thomas was playing, product of the system was a very big
absolutely, and
he has the name Slant Boy for a reason.
Yeah,
he's more than that.
Towards that. I lean towards it a little bit. I'm not sitting here saying he is that, but I certainly couldn't look at all the great wide receivers. Seems like every team has a top 15 wide receiver. Obviously, not really, but every team has that wide receiver that was drafted in the past 3 or 4 years that looks pretty fucking good.
That's a big hitter, yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't put him I could not put him in the top 10 if I made a list right now. I couldn't. So it'll be interesting to see. If they drafted, I think they should go heavy wide receiver. Obviously, offensive tackle is going to be an issue depending on what happens with Jerome Armstead. I think they need depth on the offensive line anyway. They probably need tight end. I mean, they remember how good the Saints were with Graham.
Yes, having Jimmy Graham, and then they rolled right into a Jared Cook that was very good too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, just hasn't been the same really since. Obviously, Jared Cook's been gone only a year or two, but I don't know. I think they could use having that aspect of the game back. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Do they go quarterback? It wouldn't shock me. Obviously, I don't think it would shock you either, would it?
No, not at all. I mean, Jameis coming off the injury being the biggest staple to that argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Be interesting to see. There's a lot of ways this could go. Would not surprise me a bit if they're sitting at 11, 12 wins next year. I believe that with both the Saints and the Panthers.
Saints have the best turnaround just because I think that they're more built with the veterans around them. Panthers have a very promising future as well, but it hinges a lot more on the younger guys.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. All right, hey, that is it. We are closed the book. It is over. We're closing it up for the Seahawks, for the Bears, the Panthers, Saints, and Falcons. It's over. Any final words on those 5 teams? Anywhere else you want to go with it?
No, just all right. Rest of the NFL, watch out. We're ready to close the book on you next.
Then with that being said, we are going to close the book on this episode of Between the Pylons. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really, really appreciate it. We will be back next week. You can also check out our Power Rankings show that we're about to record in just a second. That will be out on Wednesday, as well as this episode of Between the Pylons. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.
7.